We're also thankful for those of you who are here, come out. And I thought the fear of the East Coast being engulfed was going to cause all the churches to be filled. You know, sometimes, you know, I don't know what God's going to have to do to get some folk attention. You know, it's truly amazing how people's relationship and even their respect for God has dwindled so. I got a text from someone who said that they were watching a baseball game yesterday, and they said that they broke out with having someone from the military sing "God Bless America." And, you know, I thought it was funny, you know, and I still think it's funny. A country wants to disregard God in the most basic things, yet has the audacity to ask God to bless it. God bless Christian America. Do like back in the days of Egypt. Bless those in Goshen. And let those in Egypt who don't have time for you or respect for you fend for themselves until they recognize and realize that there is a God and that they have not done just or right by him. Our text this morning comes from the book of Mark. The chapter is 12. In the book of Mark, chapter 12, beginning with verse number 41. This is a text that most of us are very, very familiar with. The Bible says Jesus sat down opposite the place where the offerings were put and watched the crowd putting their money into the temple treasury. Many rich people threw in large amounts, but a poor widow came and put in 2 very small copper coins worth only a fraction of a penny. Calling to his disciples, Jesus says, I tell you the truth, this poor woman, widow, has put into the treasury, more into the treasury than all the others. They gave out of their wealth, but she, out of her poverty, put in everything, all she had to live on. What to do when it makes no sense? What to do when it makes no sense? Widow and her mites. But I think there's more to it than just some poor woman going to the temple and throwing in her coins, and Jesus saying, good deal. She done good. I think there's much more to it than that. And this morning it's going to be our job to dissect this passage and to extract from it some principles and some points that can help us in our lives. First of all, this woman, we're going to talk about the characters here, this woman had the odds stacked against her. And in our world, unfortunately, there are those who still run up against circumstances where who you are, how you look, your age, your experience, your economic background, your education, all seems to have an influence over people. And with some people, if it's not the requisite amount, the odds can be against you. I heard recently, and I think it was on MSN recently, they said that a lot of, and I know it's not all Caucasian Americans, but a lot of Caucasian Americans say they are prejudiced. So they admit to being prejudiced against particularly, now there are other minorities in the United States, but they say that they're prejudiced specifically against African Americans. So you want to keep this in mind. So like this widow, there are those of us who have odds against us. Those of us who are African American, and it looks like to me everybody in here is African American, we have some odds against us. But what are we going to do? And how are we going to make sense of it and make do of it? And what are we going to do when the odds are against us? Well, first of all, this woman was in fact a woman. Strike number 1. Then she was a widow. Strike number 2. Then she was poor. Strike number 3. So she's got all this stuff up against us. We know very well about the how women, their status was viewed back then, not in very high regard. Now she's husbandless, so she's even less of a person to have to be dealt with or considered. And then lastly of all, she's a poor woman, so she's got the odds against her. But you know something I think that I really like about her? She seems to be progressing and moving forward despite the odds being against her. And what do you mean when you say what I mean when I say the odds are against her? Well, Brother Manny passed out to you all a diagram of the Temple of Jerusalem. And on the right side in the center, you will see something called the Court of Women. Here's something else she had stacked up against her. Here's the temple, and this area called the Court of the Women, this is as far as she could go in the temple. She could go no farther than this area. And conveniently enough, this was where the receptacles were for you to give offering. It was 13 containers, if you will, where people put in their offerings. And with some people, it was a great show because they wanted everyone to know how much they gave. So when they went in, they would take their coins and throw them in the receptacle. And the coins would roll around and around and around. And of course, the more coins that went in, the more people thought you gave, and the more people would be impressed with what they were given. But this woman has everything stacked against her. And in this passage, we have another set of characters. We have the rich people, and there's many of those, and then we have Jesus and his disciples, of course. And one thing about this woman that I really, really like, and my first point, what she had didn't make sense. When I say sense, I don't mean sense in that term. I mean sense in that term. The amount of money, her 2 very small coins, the smallest coins of the denomination among the Jews, the thinnest coins, when you add them up, it amounted to 1/8 of a cent. So it didn't make any sense. Not 2 cents, not 5 cents, not 4 cents. And sometimes in life, things are not going to add up for us the way we want or expect things to do. And the odds are going to be somewhat against us. And we are going to have to make a choice and a decision. What to do when it doesn't add up.